Hello and welcome to another episode of the Knock On podcast brought to you by Zero Tackle. Dan, an indifferent week of rugby league for you and I, but a week full of highlights, lowlights, some great memorable action in rugby league. What have you got for us this week?
We've got lots this week. Usually we struggle to pad the last few, but this week we had 8 and we had to trim them down. So we'll start with, we touched on it quickly on Outlaws, and that it was that the NRL said this week that, you got to lay down for penalties through the actions of their referees. It seems though someone was watching that because they've come out and said that anyone who lays down for a penalty will be HIA'd and tested for concussion. I'm going to take this one quickly, then throw to you. Because to be HIA'd or tested for concussion, the independent doctor, underline the word independent, needs to rule you out or say, oi, mate, you're coming off. So the NRL saying if you stay down for a penalty, we're going to influence the independent doctor to take you off for HIA. I absolutely loathe this statement and think it just opens up a world of issues. Because if a player cops a little bit tired, catches one on the head, oh sweet, I get a free interchange via HIA, I'm going to lay down for it. This is an all-time clanger from the NRL.
I interpreted it a little bit different to you. The interpretation was that if a player lays down for more than 15 seconds from a headshot, then they're enforcing the trainers to take them off for a HIA. So where you see the trainer stands there and does that little test with them and then pats their head to say it's a head injury. They're saying that if a player is down for more than 15 seconds, it's going to be the head injury. I'm going to be interested to see what they do when a player's writhing in pain from a hip drop.
Ooh, yeah.
That's going to be an interesting one. Or what about a cannonball? We saw a cannonball on the weekend. We haven't seen them for a while. How about a chicken wing? What about a crusher? Now, I know that's the neck, and they can say that they fell on the head, but I interpreted it a little bit different. That they said that the 15 seconds will be the trainer will have to mandatory take them off. But geez, like if there's a missed something, like a hip drop, and a player's laying down writhing in pain, you can't rule them out for HIA with that. Sometimes I think the NRL just shoots himself in the foot for the sake of it.
It's overreacting. It's a knee-jerk reaction to one bloke stayed down to get a penalty on the weekend. The independent doctor said, "Hey, look, he stayed down. He has to come off." That's all fair and good.
I'm cool with that.
If the doctor, who has a lot more experience than you and I combined and times by a million, says he's got to come off, he's got to come off. I think it was a joke, but whatever. I'm not a doctor. This just says to me, if you're down and you're tired and you think it's in the 23rd minute and the front row cops are hit across the beak, they can stay down and get a free interchange. It's going to be coached. I guarantee you if there's any loophole, one of the coaches or all of them are quickly going to jump on. The other issue I have with it is if someone is not loopy, they're going to try and get up within 15 seconds to avoid this mandatory HIA, fall over, and then the world's going to explode because it's going to be duty of care, this and that. They needed to come out and said that if we can prove you stay down for a penalty, we will act on it. You'll be penalised or something. They can't say you'll have to come off for HIA. Takes the whole reason they have an independent doctor out. Because I guarantee you, 99 times out of 100, unless a bloke's eyes are crossed and he's talking about what's for dinner, mum or dad, the trainer's going to let him stay on because the doctor's going to pull him off anyways, and the trainer's not going to go, the doctor cleared him, but I said he needed it, and cop the wrath of the coaching staff. I just think they need to shut up and just leave it in the hand of a doctor. If you want to lay down, you run the risk, but also don't have your referees make decisions that encourage you to lay down. Because I guarantee you, the same player, Kyle Flanagan, wouldn't have stayed down if that had happened in the first half.
I remember last year, now, I know it was a Tigers player, and I think it was Luke Brooks, got hit in the groin. Now, for any male who has ever been hit in the groin, you know that is not something that you can get up from really quickly. So he stayed down, and he was quite clearly holding that region. The replay showed that he got hit there, and then they ruled him off for a HIA. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember laughing about it with you.
Pretty sure it was Luke Brooks, but geez, man, can we stop talking about HIAs and doctors? It's very frustrating.
Absolutely. Moving on to Origin, your boys. We discussed the Blues on Outlaws. Make sure you check it out, please. Selwyn Cobbo has been left out, which I'll give you a moment. But I want to get your thoughts as a Queenslander on the fact that David Fifita has been left out when Catewell's been named ahead of him. Okay, I get it as a utility, but he's a back rower. Outside of the 17, there's no sign of David Fifita. What's he done wrong? Why isn't he picked?
I think Billy Slater's really ramping home your club form because Selwyn Cobbo was outstanding, absolutely outstanding in Origin, and he's gone back to the Broncos and he has not been good. Like defensively, he's been stepped by a winger, he's been caught out of position so many times, and this is what you're going to expect from a young guy who has played every season in the NRL on the wing and a couple of games of fullback, and this year we're asking him to be a centre. So I think he's a little bit unfairly done, and I understand Billy's reasoning of you haven't been good at clubland, and Capewell can cover the centres and has covered the centres in an Origin winning team before, plus gives us that extra forward aggression because we think that it's going to be a battle of the forwards this week. I didn't see the need to change a winning team. And if Queensland are going to go after him again, after Reece Walsh again, I'm going to be more comfortable having Cobbo come off the bench than Capewell. With David Fifita again, it's a complete club thing. I think he hasn't been in good form for the Titans. They're currently running last. He played out his future with a big media circus and got distracted. And I can't name 3 good games from David Fifita this year. I can tell you 3 good highlights, like his dummy half barge over tries and his long 40-metre runs and the exceptional post-contact metres, but he hasn't done it for 80 minutes. The fact, though, that Hylam Lukey and Trent Liero are ahead of him, I think that I think there's a couple of things to that as well. I just read somewhere that the Cowboys have the bye, and I'm pretty sure the Storm don't have a bye either, but Trent Liero will be let back. I think the Titans have a game as well, so they kind of said if Fifita's not going to be in the team, please don't put him on the interchange bench. But yeah, really, really weird that. I don't know. Like this guy here is a big game player, and he's a big moment player, and he is a guy that you can throw the ball to on the left edge and just ask for absolute destruction. Now, my thinking, and I actually didn't say it, but my thinking was, geez, imagine David Fifita in game 1 on the left edge when Swaliti had been sent off. That would have been absolutely disgraceful. But, you know, it is what it was. Jaden Sewell was still outstanding as well, but he ain't David Fifita.
No, look, when I saw the headline, it was Cobbo's out. And I'm thinking, well, they brought Fifita in. So I just didn't think about it. And then I got a text in the group chat that said, Catewell's playing. I was like, who'd they drop for Catewell? What? Kafusi? Because I thought Kafusi would just step up if there's, if anything. And like, no, Fifita's not even in the squad. And I don't know whether he's liked Billy Slater's wife's photos on Instagram or he's just, Billy's come to him and said, how about? And Fifita's gone, no. And it just hasn't got out. He's been pretty coy. Billy Slater, like, to his credit, he's a legend, an all-time great fullback, if not the best fullback we've ever seen. And it seems to have translated to his coaching, at least in short-term Origin arena. So I'm not going to doubt him per se. I can't see how David Fifita's not in your top 20. Maybe
I can't see how he's not in the top 7. I can't see how he's not in the top 17. But as a Queenslander, in Billy you trust.
Yeah, you got to, I suppose. As a Blue, I'm happy he's not playing because he's one bloke that I know that if he decides to have a game, he has a game, and he's near impossible to stop. But look, enough Origin. We'll discuss that next week, unfortunately, as it takes over the competition yet again. One that you wanted to put here that I already had, so that just shows where our minds are at. Kelma Tuilagi, suspended for 4 weeks, has decided to fight the grading and risk an extra week. They've ruled him out. A thumb injury, I believe, which is going to keep him out for 6 weeks. So he said, I'll just take the 5. Is that a loophole? Because part of me thinks you should have to serve your 5 after you come back from injury.
No, you can't do that to someone. Because, it's the same thing. If he was suspended and he's 2 weeks into the injury and he breaks his thumb at training, what are you going to do? Pause his suspension then? I think the fact that they were going to take it to the judiciary is a little bit, how's it going? And then he's got the thumb injury and they've said, okay, we'll just go and plead a no contest, and no contest equals the 5 weeks. It's not a loophole. It's unfortunate. It just looks stupid. That's all. Like, take the 4 weeks. Just take it. Like, when the match review committee charge you with something that extraordinary and give you a 4-week suspension. Like, how many people have you ever seen overturn a 4-week suspension?
Not many, to be honest.
You know you're going to cop it. So, and that's the same thing as well. You're like, oh, my hand's sore. You go and get that checked out. Yeah, you got a broken thumb. I'll just take the early guilty plea.
I couldn't believe it, the way it played out. When they said they were fighting, I was like, really? Like, maybe there's a technicality they can get it down to 2 weeks?
Well, they accepted the guilty plea, but they wanted to fight the grading.
Yeah.
And then when he broke his thumb, they just said, 5 weeks will do because he's out for 6.
We'll just take the 5. Now, as a player, you'd be like, well, we've set up the argument. Why don't we go in and... Because that's on his record now, and carryover points, etc. I don't know what difference a week makes, or plead no contest actually helps him in the long run. But to be ready to fight, as they were, and then go, don't worry about it because you got a broken thumb. If I'm Tuilagi, I would have been like, no, get in there and fight for me. It doesn't matter what my injury status is. Like you said, it's a ridiculous situation. I'm a little bit... I know the injury, like if they knew about it on Monday, whatever. But if they only found out, say, like an hour before that was released, if I've got a hamstring twinge, Terry, is where I'm going with this, I'm just going to go out and coat hanger some bloke, knowing that I'm gone for 4 weeks, and cop 3 weeks suspension. Like, it's just... I'm always looking for a loophole.
I think it was a training injury. It wasn't a game injury. It was a training injury. It happened on the Monday. They were ready to fight. He hurt his thumb at training.
They said, look, it's one that hasn't come up yet, and it was well worth a laugh. And I mean, I wish him all the best, etc. But geez, it's a ridiculous game.
It is.
Now, a little bit more serious. There's a link with a superstar. I don't think that's unfair. Damien Cook is looking at options, been linked with, being shopped around, whatever you want to believe. Been linked immediately with the Dragons, who are fast becoming a nursing home for elderly players. Still a very, very good player. What are your thoughts on him potentially leaving? Because I thought Wayne Bennett was coming back to a megastar spine. I don't think that's unfair to say either. At least an all-rep spine. And now there's talk of him moving on his number 9 out. What's going on there?
Well, I think Wayne was banking on Jeremy Marshall-King following him and being his new Darius Boyd, but that didn't happen. Jeremy Marshall-King re-signed with the Dolphins, and my God, that Dolphins team is incredible. Mm-hmm. That is a spine that is building so nicely for them at the moment. The Roosters have come in and said, look, we're actively shopping Brandon Smith, so we're in the Damien Cook sweepstakes as well. For the Dragons, I think, like, obviously you've got to go out and try and get good players, but one, Cook is really old, and two, Jacob Little is in arguably better form than Cook has been in, more recently. Like, Cook's played New South Wales Cup this year.
Yeah, true.
And I know that you could argue that the Dragons are a New South Wales Cup team, but, it's... I don't know. I can't see him leaving. He was he was with the Dragons first, I think, and then he went to the Dogs and then ended up at Souths. I don't know. If I'm Damien Cook, I don't make the move. I stay at South Sydney.
Yeah, I think Souths have got a good year coming next year with Bennett. And there you see the kick up as soon as Bennett signed. I don't think... Ben Hornby, to his credit, has done pretty well.
I know Souths are trying to save money because they've got a lot... they've got a lot of good players like Trell and Whiten and Walker taking up, big money. But I don't think Damien Cook costs you that much anymore. And I know they've got that young kid, Peter Marmazoulis, coming through, but he still looks like he's about 18 months away. So that would be the end of 2025. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't hurt to re-sign Cook for 2 years and turn around and say, you know what, 2025 we're going to start to transition you out and you can either be on the bench or we can release you early or, to go to the Super League or whatever, or he can start and you can come off the bench. We'll figure it out that way. But if I'm Cook and my options are the Roosters, who punt everybody and try to sign everybody, or the Dragons, I'm probably going to stay and get coached by Wayne Bennett, who got the best out of me and turned me into a rep player.
Yeah, I thought this was a really weird one. It screams salary cap to me, because why else would you move a player of his quality on? And I know he's not 28 anymore, he's 30 whatever, but that Mamazoulis is a good young kid, and I got some South mates that have spoken very highly about him. wouldn't mind seeing Cook moved on. So that made me think about it. But you mentioned Marshall King before. I actually thought he re-signed about 4 weeks ago. When I heard today, I'm like, did they up him again? It must have been that he was going to re-sign. That's a genuine superstar in the making in Marshall King. That's a great work from the Dolphins.
4 weeks ago, it was said that when Wayne Bennett was going to South, that Marshall King, he wanted him to go, and the Dolphins were doing everything to fight that off, and they have fought it off. Today, it's been announced that he's re-signed since till 2028. He is an absolute weapon of a player. I remember when he left the Dogs to go there, and he'd had a great year, and I had said in a couple of our group chats that I would have Jeremy Marshall King over Blake Brayley. I stand by that. Stand by that to this day. Marshall King is an absolute weapon of a player, one of the best number 9s in the game.
Yep, huge fan. Other than, say, Harry Grant, Appy and Robson, I'd probably have him number 4 now. You could probably talk me over one of the other two as well. Obviously, Grant's undisputed number 1. Yeah, well done to the Dolphins. Huge re-signing before, because I guarantee you, the Roosters, if they move Brandon Smith on, will be looking hard, because I know Connor Watson's a handy number 9, but I think he's a utility in the back row. Speaking of being targeted, mate, we had a quick chat off before we hit record. I wish Liam Martin would shut up. He's come out earlier, just in general, I mean, but he's come out early and said, of course we're going to target Reece Walsh, but we're not going to target him on purpose. It's just part of the game. Okay, before I throw to you, Terry, if you're not targeting your opposition's most attacking player, you're doing rugby league wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Stop denying you're not targeting him to put him in hospital or concuss him or knock him out like last time. That was a tackle gone wrong. And you cannot convince me that Joseph Suaalii meant to do what he did. He just wanted to rattle Walsh and let him know he was there. But, of course, they're going to target him. And I guarantee you that the second there's a late hit, even a second, or a high shot, or they contest the ball and Walsh flips, the whole of Queensland's going to be say, you are targeting, and Liam Martin's got no one to blame but himself.
I absolutely agree with you. Like, the one thing that you don't want to be doing is it running your mouth, or is it shooting from the hip too early, or whatever? But I mean, everybody knows that he's going to be targeted. So you only need to have a look at what Queensland did the last game, and Reece Robson made 50 tackles.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have a look at the halves, Nicho Hines and Jerome Luai both made over 25 tackles each. That says that they went with a game plan to target the most effective players on there. They didn't target Teddy because they know that Teddy's got a running game. So how they targeted Teddy was kick chase and a good line. Mm-hmm. The other two guys, or the other three guys who create the opportunities for New South Wales, made a bucket load of tackles. You don't come out and say it because you know what's going to happen? Walsh is going to get another shot high to the head, and Ashley Klein's going to be sitting there going, that's intentional.
Yep.
That's an intentional shot to the head. They've already prerequisited something into, and it's an unconscious bias. Like, Ashley Klein is not going out there going, geez, I can't wait to send somebody off. If it happens to Tom Dearden, Ashley Klein's going, right, yeah, sweet, it's a penalty. But if it happens to Reece Walsh, a shot to the head that looks nasty, he's going to turn around and go, well, it's premeditated. You got to go.
Mm. Yeah, it's just dumb. I really wish New South Wales would just zip it this week. They should have been put on a media ban. I know Fox and Nine pay a lot of money, etc., but they should. Maguire should have said, I will speak, and Jake Trbojevic will speak. That's enough. Your captain and your coach are enough. And then if you want to put your talking heads, put one in, put Badiris up, or put Johns, or God forbid, Brad Fittler, or someone, and say, yeah, he represents us, whatever he says, whatever, I don't care. Don't go into a game that you must win stirring up a Queensland side who were far better than you in game one, who won last year and I believe won the year before, and give it and poke them. You don't go to the big, scary, powerful dog who wants to tear you apart and poke him and go, this would be good, this would be good. Liam Martin especially should shush, because in game one, he had those two amazing shots, and that's all people remember. But he was stepped by pretty much you name a Queenslander, he stepped and beat a tackle from Liam Martin. And there's that one that was made very popular really quick where he went and fell over himself, and it reminded him of when he ran past Matt Moylan last year or a year before, whenever that was. He's the kind of player who, it's not like Jake Trevor, well, not even him. It's not like Payne Haas coming out and saying, yeah, I'm going to smash him. Okay, Payne Haas deserves to be there. He's the best prop in the game. Liam Martin's hanging on, and I can be convinced that he shouldn't even be in the 17, let alone in the starting position. And he's going out there and saying this. I think it's, I think my role, I'm not real happy with my performance. I'm going to go there out there and get on the front foot. Do not stir Reece Walsh up. I guarantee you, if Liam Martin runs at him, Walsh is going to step and go straight through, and it'll be 4-0 before you even blink. I just wish the Blues would say, look, we need to win. We're focused on winning. We're not playing this game. We've seen Maguire go out there and chip at Billy Slater, and Billy Slater's come back and chipped at him. Okay, Billy Slater is an Origin winning coach, and Michael Maguire's never won an Origin game in his career. Just shh. Do talking on the field. Go out and build them up. Go beat them by 40. Then talk all you want. I hate the way the Blues are handling this. But moving on, mate, it's time for our weekly Parramatta coaching update because this story will just not end. It's supposedly, depending on who you believe, down to Jason Ryles and Josh Hannay. So they'll be appointing a rookie coach because although Hannay was an interim for a bit at the Sharks, he's never had a full-time role, I believe.
Is interim at the Sharks and the Cowboys.
There you go. I am going to go on record here, and this might be controversial. I feel like their mind was made up that it was Jason Ryles from the start, and this whole thing has been a sham.
I think they've gone in with a target saying our number one target was Wayne Bennett. Our fallback plan is Jason Ryles. But if Jason Ryles says no to us, we can't start the process all over again. Mm-hmm. So instead of putting all the eggs in the Wayne Bennett basket and then going, holy crap, now we need to have a process, they didn't want to do that for a second time. So they've identified the coaches in Checker, in Trent Barrett, in Hannay, in Ryles, Madge, and they've said, right, our clear number one target is Jason Ryles. We're going to interview everybody, and then we're going to rank them in order. But we'll leave Jason Ryles at number one, and then we'll rank everybody afterwards. And they've come out of those interviews and gone, you know what? Jason Ryles is still number one. Josh Hannay's number two. Let's ring everybody else and cut the list off. And it's down to those two now. If Jason Ryles says no, we go to Josh Hannay. If Jason Ryles says yes, Josh Hannay goes back to the Sharks. It's as simple as it's recruitment 101.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I just feel like it was Ryles or bust from the start. And I think that if they miss Ryles, Parramatta fans are going to think, oh, God, it's only Josh Hannay. Now, I have a high thinking of Josh Hannay. I like what he's done at Cronulla. I like the bloke. I like the fact that we brought him to the club, chucked him to the Gorillas, and he didn't come out and say, oh, you know, the Sharks have done me dirty, I'll never speak to him again. It didn't end like the John Morris thing did, and I don't particularly blame John Morris for that either. But I think the way Hannay he's become more of a club legend now than he ever was during his however many games for Cronulla, 6 or 7 or whatever it was.
3.
Well, there you go. That makes sense. I wouldn't be too disappointed. Like I would hate to lose Hannay at Cronulla, but if I'm a Parramatta fan, I don't know if I'd be disappointed in Hannay. I'd rather him than a Barrett or a Maguire or one of these tried and tested and not fail, but not doing the best. They need a fresh set of eyes, and I like that they've narrowed it down to 2. But if they don't go with Jason Ryles, it's purely because he said thank you, but no thank you.
Someone nailed it on the timeline today, and it was when you interview Trent Barrett and when you interview Michael Maguire and when you interview Hook and when you interview all these coaches that are just, call it what they are, crap. When you interview them, it's like in the English Premier League when the teams are fighting for survival, they don't want to get relegated, so they go with the tried and tested. They ring Alan Pardew, they ring Sam Allardyce, they ring Roy Hodgson, and they just say, you've got the job for 6 or 7 months, just get us out of trouble. We don't want to come last, and then we'll interview you for the job afterwards. Meanwhile, they try and find someone else. So, yeah, good on Parramatta for not being pressured into going with Trent Barrett or going to find an experienced coach or whatever. I think, times are changing in the NRL. We're seeing lots of good young coaches coming out. Like Ivan Cleary had no experience, had one stint at Penrith that was a disaster and has come back. He's now the best coach in the game. Can't convince me otherwise. Yeah, good on him. You've got to take a punt. It could either be Carney or they could have another 10-year coach like they did with Brad Arthur.
Yep, that's good. And I think the fact that they have the bye this week, I think we'll have a new coach by the end of the bye week, just between us. Now, I'm going to throw this one to you because you wanted to talk a little bit of Tigers.
A little bit of Tigers. So, The Tigers always seem to find themselves in the headline for a negative reason, no matter what happens. Now, instead of celebrating a win against, another. Let's face it. I don't rate the Titans. I never have. I probably never will. But the Tigers went in really, really depleted. Injuries, suspensions, you name it, they had it. Api playing halfback. And they got the win, and the next day it's just negative article after negative article after negative article, and this is just a facade, and, they're still going to come last and whatever. And we know that, right? It's now spewed over to them blaming somebody who hasn't been at the club for over 18 months and not giving that person a right to reply. So when Scott Fulton has his right to reply and says, look, every single player that I signed at the Tigers was run by Benji Marshall, I went to him and said, hey, we can get Josh Schuster, and Benji Marshall said no. I want Aiden Caesar, he went and got Aiden Caesar. He wanted the Lanu brothers, he went and got the Lanu brothers. He wanted Justin Olam, he went and got Justin Olam. Why are you digging up ghosts of the past? Talk about what's happening now. Talk about Shane Richardson coming out on the front foot and saying, we won't be bullied into making bad decisions. Talk about the win that they haven't, they hadn't had a win since round 4. Mm-hmm. Talk about that. It's really this is really frustrating for me to say, because I am one of the people who will go and dump on the Tigers online just for some cheap likes because it's fun. But you've just a really positive story. They've won their second game at Leichhardt. They're 2 from 2 there. They've just had $50 million in funding promised them to make that place less of a nightmare. And you want to talk about the recruitment manager from last year? Just be done with it. We understand there's an agenda there. They're a poorly run club. They haven't played finals for 12 or 13 years now. They're probably not going to play for another 3 years. Don't stomp on something that's already been done and dusted. You've already bagged Scott Fulton on the way out. Why do it again?
Yeah. Now, last week we tried to put some positive Tigers in it, and it turned negative because it was doom and gloom. Let's be honest. Galvin wanted out. They hadn't won in 7 or 8 weeks. Things just weren't going well. They tried to get rid of the halfback, and he said, no, I'm not going anywhere. It just wasn't a good week. This week, you've got Lachlan Galvin come out and say, I'm staying. He said he's had a good chat with Jerome Luai, who's going to be their 7 next year. So there's your halves pairing for the next however many years until Galvin moves to lock. As you said, Shane Richardson came out and said we're not going to be bullied into releasing Lachlan Galvin. He's been to England. He's trying to get rid of players that have been deemed excess, no longer needed or overpaid, whatever. He's made some smart recruitment decisions. They've won. They've sold, 10,000 tickets in rain sideways, 4 degrees Leichhardt Oval, which is a bog at the best of times. And you come out and bag him? You don't go looking. This is a club that gives you so many opportunities to have a go at them. You don't need to go looking for things. Yeah, obviously there's some people that have come out and said things based on they were friends with whoever used to be there. Those are the blokes you should be bagging, not a bloke who did a bit of recruitment for a little while and then got flicked. He just wasn't up to it. Whatever. It happens. That's why I'm not going to launch into the old CEO of the Tigers. I don't think he did a particularly good job. But he's gone now. It's not about blaming him. It's like getting into government going, yeah, but these guys. Yeah, you've had 4 years. Yeah, but these guys. No. You're there to do a role. You look forward. And the journos and the people should be looking at that. Bag Benji Marshall for not running the subs or picking wrong players. That's completely relevant. But don't bag a bloke that hasn't been in the club for, like you said, almost 2 years. I think this week, everything positive, it should have been all positive from the Tigers. I love the fact that Leichhardt's been saved. We rag on it because it's not the nicest ground in the world. I think I'm putting that nicely, but it's romantic. And 50 mil, it's not my 50 mil. Well, technically, we gave it to it, but you wouldn't know. What they do with the money isn't my concern. Save it. Who cares? It makes my friends happy. They get a game or a win or 2 a week. I said in my 20 thoughts yesterday, they got to play every game at Leichhardt. I know it's going to cost them a mozza, but if they want to play final football, they have to play at Leichhardt every week. Simple as that. I think it's a great week for the Tigers, and of course there's going to be people come out and bag them, but it won't be me.
Nope, not me either. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Knock On Podcast, brought to you by the great people at Zero Tackle, your one-stop shop for everything rugby league. It's got the gossip, it's got the transfers, it's got the player contracts, it's got everything you need. We've got 20 to 1 we get your 20 thoughts every week in rugby league. Dan, we're coming up for Origin. So what have you got for us this week? What's Scott got to hit the approve button on?
Well, I wrote that just went up a couple of days ago what started as a hit piece on the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks and turned into Cronulla's biggest hurdle of themselves. My first draft was very, very negative, and then I had time to think about it. And the second one was constructive criticism. So I want any Sharks fans watching, please go check that out. Let me know what you think, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm up for any sort of feedback. There's a fair bit of Origin stuff coming. Keep a lookout. I've got about 5 or 6 things I've done rough drafts on. I don't want to blow too soon, but I wrote the other day that Connor Watson should be selected because he's the Mr. Fix-It for New South Wales. I'm going on right now to say that I don't think he'll be man of the match. It's hard to win from the bench, but I think he'll play a big part in Origin 2 victory and making us put up for a decider, which I think Queensland will win by.